So, Richard Sturr's written this about the land adjacent to Fenay Lane, Fenay Bridge. Formally object to the proposed sale of this land for development. The land is public open space and was previously permanent pasture land, grassland and woodland. So, he said, right, that the closing date was, his post is 3 days ago. And he said that it was the next day, so that was the day before yesterday. But it's actually not the case. And I've made 3 videos for that. There's a big petition going around at the moment for Save the Darwin Oak, Shropshire Council. And I don't have any specific points for any objections or complaints because it's all about the framework. It's all about process and procedure of council and the process and procedure they've been accustomed to, the process and procedure they take for granted, the decision-making process and the times and the objection times and all the facts and points and issues and matters that they say you can raise and the facts you can complain about and facts you can't complain about. The whole framework and process of it. Because in the Local Governments Referendums and Elections Act and for petitions, right, it clearly states and explicitly states, right, that you can actually make your own rules up. And all of the rules that are written in the acts can be disregarded and overwritten through the use of an enactment, particularly when it's the enactment the right to petition and all prosecutions and being held to commitments are illegal, which means that you can't hold anyone to any time limits. Just like with the petitions committee in government when they say, oh, the petitions run for 6 months, when people are running them for 8 months and longer. It clearly states in the act, and also it says that you can draw up and create your own terms and conditions which can be applied as well. So it is a joke process. It is a joke process and procedure. And the fact is, right, one person can do a petition and all complaints and petitions over a certain matter have got to be amalgamated together. That means that if I complain about something and someone else has complained about a similar thing or the same thing, whether it's by a normal formal complaint or whether it's by a petition, they've got to be combined together because a standard complaint is a petition from one person anyway, right? Now, you can actually have local referendums which are never hardly used. People don't bother to ask for them or need them. But you don't actually have to have a local referendum for an entire council, because you can create your own provisions and you can actually suggest and create anything you want. Just like anyone can put a proposal in for, building anything they want. When you are doing process and procedure, you can actually suggest or create process and procedures by which things will be done anyway through the act. And through the right to petition, you can petition for that anyway. And you can actually have a ward referendum. You can actually have a ward referendum. There's nothing stopping it from happening. If it concerns those people in that ward, you can have one. And for example, Almondbury or Lepton, for example, if there's like 3,000 people there in the village or whatever the electorate is, for example, Alison Monroe's ward can have a referendum in that ward over the sale of that land because it concerns them, right? And, at the end of the day, you could say, well, how many people are moving into the houses? Well, none, because they haven't been sold yet. You can't, I mean, who's in favour of it even? Well, no one's in favour of it. If they'd already, if 8 people wanted to build houses for themselves, you could say, well, those 8 people want to live there and they're in favour of it. But when it's a developer or the council just saying, oh, we're going to sell the land on behalf of the public, well, what if the public don't want it sold, right? Who's even going to buy it at the end of the day? Because, that person who sells it and buys it is going to make money and a profit out of it. Companies are going to make money and profit out of the houses being built. Yet there isn't actually anyone yet who's bought them or who wants one because they don't exist yet. So it's all hypothetical. And at the end of the day, the people who it does concern, it are the people of that area. And to be honest, it shouldn't even really go to any other area because it's unless you escalate it to another area. Like if the people in that area don't get the outcome they want. By the 2000 Act for local referendums and elections and petitions, right, it clearly states that if you use an enactment, which is the right to petition, you can't be held to any commitment, you can make up your own provisions and you can actually suggest your own procedures and rules for by which something will even be decided and run on. So I can say, right, I want a ward referendum in Almondbury. Or whatever, to the full extent of Alison Monroe's ward or whichever ward it's in, right? Which is Fenay Bridge. I can ask for that. And I can set out the provisions. Well, what the provisions are? Well, the provisions will be, I want a referendum in Alison Monroe's ward with 3,000 people or whatever electorate she's got, however many electorate she's got, right? And we can have, if 5% of the electorate sign a petition, which is 150 people, and if you ain't already got 150 objections, then if we've already got 150 objections, my petition automatically gets to include those objections. I already get to include those objections in it, right? And I can have that because I thought of it, and it says you can think of whatever you want, right? We can have a local referendum run in Alison Monroe's ward, and we can require the council to poll everyone in that area whether or not they want the council to sell that land or not. And you only need to match 5% of the electorate, which is 150 people, if it's 3,000, for example, to get it. You can have it. And there is no time limit for petitions because you can't be held to any commitments. And they know that. They even say that, when you read into the council websites and into the proper details, it even admits that, objections and complaints can still be accepted a little bit after the closing date. And further to that, a petition can be accepted and submitted at any time. And even if a planning has been, because actually with a local referendum, you're overriding the chamber decision. So when they even say, oh, we've already made a decision, Tough will say, well, we're going over the top of your decision. It exists. And these local referendums are not being used. And I don't think you even have to have a KIRKLEES council referendum of the whole council or the whole electorate. If it's something more important, then yes. But unless anyone else from any other ward, if you were to, I am proposing it. If you were to say, right, we're having a little referendum in Almondbury ward for the sale of this land, who else does it matter, right? If then, right, it goes in the Examiner, right, and then if no one from Birkby or Fartown or Dalton or anywhere else is bothered, right, and objects to it and say, well, we don't want them to have a referendum, right, then we can have it. If they then say, no, if they start sending letters in and objecting to that referendum, then, you could say, well, now we're getting some opposition in or whatever. But if no one cares or no one's interested about that sale in the land, if no particular person says, oh, I want an house there, I want an house built there for me, who's going to actually, they haven't even built them yet. They haven't even sold the land or designed the houses. So how many people are in favour of it yet? None, because they don't exist. Now, if 8 separate people, right, are going to build houses for themselves to live in, and those 8 people say, well, there's 8 people here, we want these houses, even then, if 150 people say they don't want them houses built there, they're outnumbered unless you're building 150 houses. But even then, it's one. The fact is that when there's one developer, one person who just happens to have a big wallet with some money in it, a big wad of cash. Oh, I'm going to build some houses there and make £5 million out of them. Oh, I'm helping the council fulfil their, building agenda. Yeah, but for who? If people in an area don't want it, then why would you force it on them? The fact is that no one person with any amount of wads of cash or money has a political right over any number of people in excess who don't want it. Because his money is not his voting power. He's only one person. He's only one developer, right? Now, if there are so many councillors on the council also who want to sell that land, right? Well, if there are, 10 councillors who want to sell that land to build houses, is that their ward? Is that even their area or ward? Why don't they go build houses in their ward, not in that Ammanbury ward? At the end of the day, right, there is a process of local referendum, and there is nothing to stop you having a ward referendum in one area. You can have it. You can have it if you ask for it, and if you think of it, and if you call it, and if you propose it, and if you get the 5% of signatures, which is 150, I think that we'll already have 150 complaints and objections from this group. And, it won't take long to get 150 signatures. And as for time limits is a load of rubbish. Time limits is joke, comedy. It's a con. It's the biggest con ever, because in the Act, it writes it off. The Act writes itself off. And this is the same with many other acts of law. Even when it comes to broadcasting, when MPs and so forth are meant to be on television, like Rees-Mogg on GB News, there are even clauses in those that, hint to the enactment whereby, it's illegal for the MPs to do this or that. But if they call it, it happens to be that it's not, it's a joke. And at the moment, the corporate business objectives of the council are just basically bossing us all, when actually it is people power, not pound notes in developers' money. And developers are winning all the time, because the council is saying, oh, you can only complain about this, you can only complain about the other thing. Actually, no. Because when you have a local referendum, you tick a box, yes or no. You don't need a reason. And you know what that is based on? It's based on the jury. It's based on the jury deciding in favour or against. And as with the Ian Bray case at Southwark Crown Court, he completely disregarded the law, and the jury just made up their own decision without regard to any law at all whatsoever. They didn't even have to acknowledge the law. What's that based on? It's based on the Petition of Right from the 1620s, which is the foundation of the legal process. It is the legal process that we've got now. And it is that a judgment can be made by the rule of law or by the lawful judgment of the peers, which is the jury. And the peers can, lawful judgment of the peers is by due process, lawful process. It means that, like the council chamber, get into the chamber, everyone's supposed to have a say their statements, get all the particulars together, tell everyone what the matter is about, like written down here, this is the land adjacent to Fenay Bridge, DEV, HG, D70. This is lawful process. And the thing is, a referendum is a lawful process. So what is that process? Well, the process is by setting out what it's about, what it concerns, and then properly and lawfully going to every person who it concerns and asking them what their opinion is and counting them properly, and then, coming out with the answer and making it official. That's lawful process because it's been officially performed, right? You don't actually need all of this stuff here about the land is public open space, or probably previous permanent pasture, greenland and woodland, and colonised trees and wildflowers. Right, we're making a case here. There are 15 bat species, 15 butterfly, a rare iguana, or something, or whatever it is. Don't matter. Every single clause on that council website, you can complain about this, you can complain about that. How many people are going to be affected? Have you checked it for asbestos? Whatever. Even that, even in a court, when, even it can only be, this is what the law is, the jury can actually override it. And that is what you're doing with the councillors, because the councillors are trying to make decisions claiming that they're looking at, how many, how is it going to impact this? How much woodland, they're adding it up and weighing it all up by all these, clauses which, they've got to make. Don't matter. Because the people actually can't override it. And it's the same as the judge when the jury override the judge. And that is the process of law which actually is real now and we're using, but people don't really understand it. And when you look at the law, in effect, like the 2000 Act and the 2011 Act, clearly states, I've just submitted 3 videos for evidence to that Darwin oak petition about saving that oak tree. They're trying to put a road through the oak tree. And, they've already got over 25,000 signatures anyway, and they've got a right to a local referendum there. And, there are other things to do with protection of the tree, which I could raise as well. But it doesn't matter. You can actually have a ward referendum. It exists, or you can think of it yourself, because it says that, you can actually propose the provisions by which something is going to be decided on and run by petition, and you can actually get it approved. And the model is there for 5%, so it actually is within it's actually basing it on the rules that they've got, on the 5%. It doesn't say which electorate, because you can actually, why would you need to ask all KIRKLEES about the building of houses in Harmonbury if they're not interested in it? Because that would be a waste of time. When there are plenty of other patches of land to sell. And even if the council didn't like the outcome of it, if the councillors didn't like the outcome of, the Harmonbury vote on it, then they could always say, all right, we'll take it to all of KIRKLEES then. Why aren't these processes used? Well, it just costs a certain amount of money, but it's not that expensive because, it's all tax-free. And, they're not allowed to exceed a certain amount of money over it anyway. But they don't like it because the councillors don't get to decide. We get to decide. And if we decided more often, then the landowners and developers who had massive amounts of cash and were up for making millions out of it, right, they would easily get downvoted by people in the local area who are happy with it as it is. And the council are the ones who are wanting to do all these deals with them and sell it off, the councillors, but yet, you know, they don't impact them. They don't live there. They live on the other side of town. So, you know, I do not, and I don't even want to, I don't think the council even listen to these videos. I've submitted multiple very, very long objections, complaints, and then, you know, whenever Peacock goes into the council, you get 5 minutes. What's the point of submitting them by post? I don't think they even get looked at. It's like, you know, they're meant to, every complaint you submit is meant to get read behind the scenes, right? The hearing and all that is meant to be taken into account for when they have the hearing in the council, whenever Peacock turns up. That's for people who turn up at the hearing, who haven't submitted by post. They don't, it's not like, you know, when you, you know, send letters into, you know, the BBC and they put them all in a box and then turn the lever around and there's, oh, no, put your hand in the box and pull a, oh, this is the letter that's going to get read out in the council. Ooh, we've got 300,000 complaints. Round and round and round she goes. Where she stops, no one knows. Ooh, look at all these letters they've written into the BBC. Ooh, you know, turn the wheel, spin the wheel now. Put your hand in there, Heather, and pull one lucky complaint out. Oh, here we go. Sally from Fenay Bridge. Here we go. I do not want them to cut the trees down because my daughter has got a swing there and it will really upset her. You know, this is it. Wow, your 2 minutes is up. Beep, beep, beep. Oh, time's up now. Oh, the council only booked, 3 seconds to read that out. Oh, what a coincidence. You mean they haven't read all the complaints that were sent by post, taken them all into account, and then when they have the hearing, then the people who actually turn up and they can read the results out and have anybody to speak? No, it's got to be read out in the hearing. Rubbish. How about all of the complaints that were sent in that object, then they pretend they don't exist and completely disregard them because, you know, about 3 people turn up and then, you know, no witnesses there. Not like Extinction Rebellion, turn up Isleworth Crown Court with Jonathan N. Fuller and, you know, about, 20 or 30 Extinction Rebellion witnesses in the gallery to watch court proceedings. Oh, now we've got to play it by the rule books. Oh, look, it's the judge and the prosecutor. Now, look, he looks like he's got a brush up his bum. He's walking really stiff. We can't cancel minutes now. We've got to make it look like it's all legitimate. You know, get Andrew Cooper in. Get Andrew Cooper from Green Party in. We'll soon be calling him out on legitimate proceedings. Oh, we've got witnesses now. Well, you know, none of the objections have got heard. What's the point in asking the public for their opinion then? This is KIRKLEES Council. Please submit your objections before the 8th of November. But by the way, we'll only have time to look at about 3 of them in proceedings and the rest are going to be completely ignored. In fact, we chucked them in the fucking Bunsen burner, you know, or whatever. Pardon my French. This is why I don't bother objecting to KIRKLEES Council. And this is what Richard Verb's channel is about at the moment, when the councils are doing these fines and they're getting these judges in and they're just stamping them all. They're doing hundreds of fines, stamp, but everyone's got a right to turn up and they're telling people not to bother turning up, right? And how it works out is that it's actually illegal because it's not actually, if they did it legitimately, it won't be possible to do it because they're running that many fines through that if everyone turned up to represent, they couldn't possibly, they won't be able to facilitate it. It's actually impossible. So it's a perversion of the course of justice, right? And that is another video that Verbs has got on his website. And this is now what is happening with this Darwin Oak petition and Robert McBride and other things. because it's the political parties, the mainly Conservative and Labour people, who have bent and shaped the procedures to suit them and the outcomes that they want. And that's the problem. And actually, we can shape and tailor the proceedings to suit us by petition, can't be held to any commitment. And actually, the provisions and proceedings by which it will be facilitated, you can propose them and make them up. And also, you're not held to, you literally disregard the act. Which is why there is no deadline. It doesn't exist. It's a con. It's a trick. Which means that, I can still submit a complaint today on the 11th about this matter. I can, by petition, submit an objection to this DEVHG D70a-562 now, which I am doing. I'm going to email it to this guy. Harry.Garland. It's like Tyler Hawkins, isn't it? Harry.Garland. Not that Harry.Garland will probably even bother listening to this video. But I'm sick of Armonbury area and Fenay Bridge being repeatedly under threat of developments, and we need to stop it. And also, I'm very, very interested in local referendums, and you can actually, I can think of it. I can actually invent it or create a ward referendum. I am absolutely certain that I'm sure that someone's had it before in England. Someone in this country, some councillor, I don't know what time from when, whether it's 1763 or 1900 or 1923 or whenever, I can absolutely guarantee that if you check the entire records of government, that you can have a ward referendum. You can actually have it. I'm sure you can have it. And if not, you can make it up. Because it says in that Referendums Act that you can effectively design your own referendums and conditions. You can make your own procedure up as long that it's agreed to and people know what it is and it's run properly. And if I base it on the 5% model, then I'm just using the standard model, which you can have it. You can have an Alison Monroe ward. I know there's 3 councillors in that ward. That ward's got 3 councillors, right? So it's not actually just, Alison, because, she's got opposition as well from other parties, unless they were all Lib Dems, right? Those 3 councillors, we can override those 3 councillors and have a local referendum, which effectively will really be above council level, because because you're going above councillor level, and even all the other councillors in Huddersfield, unless even if they object, you're really going over them. It's not their area, unless they say, right, well, we'll get all, if they want to then say, right, well, if they didn't agree with the outcome of it, then they could take it to full KIRKLEES. But why should we have an entire KIRKLEES referendum over selling a plot of land in Armonbury when nobody else in Huddersfield's bothered about it? If it was something like building a new motorway straight through the middle of town, or the university, or health centre, fair enough, but not a little plot of land, right? And there is a process and procedure in law, and when it's something like a plot of land, just building a few houses, really, it only concerns that ward. And if, why, I don't see why these councillors should have the right. Well, no, they don't. Why should your entire life and the future of your life and your children enjoying your visual amenities and the natural surroundings, low traffic, fields and meadows, even to look at or walk through, and that land be used for farming. What if you want that people in the area prefer that land to be used for farming? They could say to the council, we don't want it sold to housing development. What right do a council have to force it on people who are happy with it as there is? You're actually making depression. You're actually making people depressed. I don't want to even look over at the housing development opposite us. I ain't even noticed that they're taking that Emily Moore mast down, the extra mast, because I don't even want to look over there. I can't look at the housing development. It's imposed on my consciousness. It's like tearing the page out of a book and ripping your soul out. These people are actually hammering as consciousness around us and actually making crime. They're actually manufacturing crime, noise, traffic, pollution, depression, rather than having farmers and fields and walks and countryside, right? No, I don't care what central government says about providing housing. It doesn't say where you can have to provide it or build it. Go build them at the side of the M62. You'll soon have people buying those up like hotcakes. Oh, it's next to the motorway. The housing price will go down then. They won't be queuing up to buy those, will they? Why? Because it's next to a motorway, right? It's next to a motorway, so they're less likely to buy them. Oh, this is our area. It's nice. We've got fields there in Fenay Bridge. Not when the council's finished selling it off and building. Well, if we'd have known that, we wouldn't have moved here in the first place. No, well, don't worry, your area is already secured. This is your area and you like it. So, we'll build loads of houses and then loads of people will move away. Oh, then we can knock them down and build some more. Someone's making a lot of money out of this. How about, no, we've got a nice area. We don't need to make any money. We don't need to even change the area. We need to get a grip on these councillors, and that is what the Verbs channel is about and doing now, and that is what is happening in London with this ULEZ and these political parties, the Labour and Conservative Party, right? With that law says that we can have local referendums and we can propose the provisions and the process. And there is a standard process which you can have. There's nothing in that act stops us from having an Almondbury electorate referendum on the sale of that land, overriding those three councillors, and it's none of the rest of the council's business, unless other people in Huddersfield, if they couldn't give a monkeys, which half of Huddersfield don't give a monkeys because they don't even vote. So, I severely doubt, that if we get 150 signatures for a referendum in the Almondbury ward, which you can have it, unless they get 150 people petitioning the council to build those houses in favour of it, then you're overriding the council, and that is the same as Ian Bray in Southwark Crown Court disregarding the judge's directions and the law, because it's through lawful judgment of peers. And you don't have to have any of this, squirrels, environment pollution levels, none of that. Just tick the box. I don't want them to sell that land. Tick the box. That's it. Send the it's actually not going to cost the council that much to print out, 3,000 or whatever ballots and, get them taken around to the houses. Sent in the post, in fact, and in fact, you only need one polling station to, in fact, how many polling stations have we got in Lepton? There's only about 2. There's 3 councillors for Almondbury ward. There are only a couple of schools or whatever. You can, in fact, most of the facilities are already owned by the council or voluntary run, like, Lepton Islanders, look, it's these characters again, sat behind the desk, or you're volunteering again. Elections should be free. Elections should be free. So you can have a ward referendum. It's actually low cost. And then, the council will probably think it's a waste of money because they just want to have a little meeting in a chamber and slam an hammer down and say, oh, we're selling that land off whether you like it or not. Bang, bang, bang. This is it. Time's up, time limit's over. Rubbish. There is no time limit. It doesn't exist. There is no time limit. I am going to prove to this government that you can have a ward referendum. And if no one else in the county gives a hoot about it, then you need very small amounts of signatures. Like, for every 3,000 electorate area, you only need 150 signatures to match 5% to get the referendum, which isn't hard to do. And it's official, legitimate. And this is the problem. People believe in money. One man with £1 million, can change the lives of the entire, area just because he happens to have a load of money in his pocket. Well, the pen is mightier than the sword, and the pen is mightier than the pound note. And these councillors are getting elected on behalf of Labour and Conservative, and I'm sick of them. Because who are they? Who are they to just start selling this off and selling that off and selling that off and building here and building there? I don't even want to go out anymore. I don't even want to go out of the house because I don't want to look at it. It's hurting my brain. I don't want to look at it. It's despair. It's making despair and distress and the noise of the cars coming past in a constant stream, from 4 o'clock in the morning. We don't want it. I've had enough of it. I am going... If on that Richard Verb's video, they found out they have abused the legal process. It's an abusive process. And these councillors are actually banking on the fact that they think they've got some immunity because they're working on the council. Well, we've actually got some immunity, believe it or not, when we're going about collecting evidence and we're engaging in proceedings and bringing the case. Yet, the police don't seem to believe in that protection, which is, why Rees Mogg is still on GB News, because even though he knows that he's not supposed to be on there, even though, he actually thinks that he's got, it says in the act, in the deep clauses that, you can disregard the entire act. I'm going to make sure that you can that some, whether it's this time or another time, there is a local referendum power, and you can have it in a ward. That act does not prevent you from having it in the ward. When there's no requirement or need for the entire KIRKLEES to vote on it. And, if you can have an election in that area, if you can have an election in that ward, you can have a referendum in that ward because it's a legitimate voting area. And under the right to petition, right, it's the same right as for elections. So if you can elect an MP or even a councillor, if you can elect a councillor or elect 3 councillors, you can actually have a referendum in that area because it's an identified, official, designated jurisdiction. A ward is a jurisdiction. It is a jurisdiction, and you can have a referendum. If you've got a jurisdiction and an authority, wherever there's an authority, there is a right to petition that authority, and there is a right to petition that jurisdiction and override the councillors on it. And if you say, well, what about the other councillors on the council? Well, if they were to, say that, well, we do, what all the other councillors of Huddersfield, well, why they're being, if you've polled an area, if you've polled Armonbury, and Armonbury result of the poll come out from the electorate, right? If you get 150 signatures, which, I don't see, that's what it costs. That is how much to buy it, 150 souls, 150 signatures to have everyone vote on it in that ward. Why would all the rest of the local KIRKLEES councillors of the whole of KIRKLEES, the entire KIRKLEES, why would they sell a bit of land that no one in the ward wanted them to sell for houses? If the results of the poll, and then, half of the people didn't even vote, let's say the results of the poll come in favour not to sell the land to developers, right? Why would the KIRKLEES Council go against the will of the people of that ward? Because it's clear evidence that they don't want it. They don't want the land sold. They don't want the houses built. It makes me wonder what's going on in KIRKLEES when over half of the nation now don't even vote at all. So nothing they're doing is really, they don't ask for it. They haven't asked for it. And if they don't like it, but why don't they vote? Why don't they complain? Because people are complaining. And what happens is they turn up in the chamber. Oh, we've run out of time now. It's cheating. And it's about time we started using available legislation rights to get the outcomes that we want out of it, not the outcomes that what councillors who have been elected by less than half of the population in the area anyway are doing with their business buddies and corporate construction pals.